Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. This is another pointless video. You have been warned. If you don't like the first 5 minutes, it probably won't get any better after that. Thank you for your attention. On with the show. Or go outside and play. Ha ha ha. Thanks for watching. Just random life history, I guess, today. When I lived in the tropics, I never once thought of hypothermia. If suddenly everybody goes out and buys 10 copies of my book, maybe I could afford to move to Guam. But I actually looked it up. It's a $2,000 flight just to get there. And I realized it's like, okay, I would take like a duffel bag and 2 laptops and, you know, the camera so you guys can come along. I guess my point, even if you decide you don't want to go do a YouTube channel, I mean, there's plenty of room, you know. But if you're going to go off and do something, you know, take the time to document it. And it's like, oh yeah, I used to have a truck. It's like, I'm so used to not having it now. It's so weird. You know, I grew up on a farm, and I remember my dad yelling at us if we were inside watching TV. You know, you got motorcycles and snowmobiles and go play with your dog or go outside, you know, just don't spend your day inside. You know, you get a bunch of bad days in a row where you're just getting stir crazy, you know, and you just want to get off the ranch and never come back. It's most of my life. Every 2 or 3 years, I would just get fed up and drag all my stuff to the curb and run amok, and quite often just not come back. I'd just go somewhere else. It was so weird when it sunk in. I own this place. I live here. That is the biggest mind job. This is the first time I've ever had my own house that, you know, I paid for or built. And I'm like, okay, I'm home. That's so hard to get used to. You know, they're just like, well, now if I want to just run amok, I'm like, wait, I have to go back because I have a house. I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do with that, you know. Why did I come out here? That would be a good starting point, maybe. Everybody's got their own reason for whatever they're doing, you know, if you're going to move off grid or whatever, you know. Mostly, I just wanted to get away from people. And all of a sudden, it just like bing, 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 this whole list appeared in my head. It's like, if I lived in an apartment, I could turn on the tap and the water would work. I could turn on the switch and the lights would work. I could probably have high-speed internet. That was, you know, that might be better than running water, honestly. Like Patreons have really stepped up, you know, much appreciated. I didn't go off and quit my job thinking Patreons were going to, you know, feed me the rest of my life. That wasn't what I planned on doing, but hopefully you guys are, you know, getting something out of what I'm doing out here. And, you know, if you're thinking about something, and you never know, it's like the world could change, like it has. Do something, you know. If you got something that you're thinking, you know, I've heard people, oh, I'm gonna go write a book when I retire. Why wait? Close enough. Yeah, you never know. I shave once in a while. Oh, it is just gorgeous out here. Cheers. Yeah, I don't know. I just once in a while I try to walk around and get some shots of what I'm working on, which, you know, maybe the few people that'll watch it will get some ideas. The other thing for me, it's just kind of funny to see it. Every now and then I don't spend a lot of time going back and watching my own videos, but I should probably see if I'm making any progress. But it is kind of cool to see an old video. You're like, oh, man, I forgot about that thing, or yeah, that didn't work, or that one did work, or that would be something to think about, I guess. I'm just kind of rambling now, but if for, you know, like, I would assume that if you're watching this, you probably either enjoy the idea of moving off grid, or you're my mom, or, you know, you're already in the process of moving out here, or you're thinking about it. I know there's videos that I've watched that I've had an idea that, oh man, I want to go do this thing. And then you'll subscribe to a few channels and you see somebody doing it and you're like, oh man, maybe not. Maybe that was just not such a good idea after all. And then you end up liking the people, so you keep watching them, but you're like, there's no way I'm doing that anymore. One example, I talk about a couple times, Gone with the Winds. A few years ago, because I do like traveling a lot, and I had already done the motorcycle, and I've done a little bit of motorhome and living in my truck and truck camping, and I had a van, had 2 vans, done a little bit of van life, did, that kind of thing, right? And I'm like, well, what's next? It's like, well, I had actually thought about a sailboat. I mean, I was in the Navy 9 years. I actually like being out at sea. I don't know squat about how to sail a boat. That probably would have been a disaster, but you always think, oh, that'll be a good idea. And then you do it, or you find somebody who's done it. And, I don't think they're ready to sell their boat yet, but you just look at all the little things that break. It's the same as a motorhome, only more so. They say in a motorhome every day is an earthquake happening. Everything is twisting, and you go over even on a not very bumpy road. Things will be randomly just not working. Electrical connections or plumbing connections or stuff. Stuff that in your house you don't think about, but your house is going through an earthquake constantly because you're driving it, and then you throw in salt water on a boat. All your electrical stuff starts corroding. I guess my point, even if you decide you don't want to go do a YouTube channel, I mean, there's plenty of room, but if you're going to go off and do something, take the time to document it. Other channels I've seen, the guy decides he's going to build a hot rod, So you just pull out the video camera, and every day you record what you did that day. Even if you never make $1 from it, how cool is that later to go back and watch it all? So it's definitely worth doing. I've seen random, clips or, because I constantly get video or comments about old videos that I've done. And my first thought is, no, it's not like that anymore. But, they don't know. It's the first video they've seen, So it's like, yeah, it's been changed, But in the process, I'll end up seeing something. And it's like, oh, yeah, I used to have a truck. It's like, I'm so used to not having it now. So the videos used to start off, I had a truck and a motorcycle and a school bus, Now there's days I don't even look at the school bus. Motorcycle is just kind of in the way. I don't have the truck anymore. I'm still out here, but it changes, and then it's like, I don't talk very much about COVID, honestly. It's been over a year now. It doesn't really affect me very much out here. I wear a mask when I go in to get stuff. I get all my stuff is shipped to my P.O. box. So I jump on the bicycle, ride, go get it, come back. So I wear a mask when I go in, or today I bought a Coke and a couple loaves of bread at the little mini mart. So go ahead and wear my mask for that. And then out here, I've got some neighbors over there. We waved. I don't think I've talked to them, actually. I've talked to, the neighbor over here. Neighbors over there regularly give me rides when I break down on the road. But it's, out here, it's kind of like how I grew up. You quite often, if you see your friend on the road, you'd both stop and talk in the middle of the road because there just isn't that much traffic. So it's not like this is going to be a hot spot for coronavirus out here, And since I pretty much keep to myself anyway, I could be the king of lockdown because it's like, it's not a factor out here. I spend, there's a lot of days. It's so weird. I grew up on a farm And I remember my dad yelling at us if we were inside watching TV. You got motorcycles and snowmobiles, and go play with your dog or go outside. No, just don't spend your day inside. And here it's like I do get a lot of outside time, but when I'm writing or working on the videos, I'm inside. And because I'm solar powered, I'm doing stuff inside in the peak part of the day when I have the most sunshine. And it kills me. It's like I can hear my dad yelling at me. It's like, get outside, quit watching TV. It's like, yeah, but this is how I make my living. I'm inside. I need the power. It's just so weird, thinking about that. But that's, it's actually to the point that in the summer when it gets hotter, and especially when the sun is higher, I'll be putting stuff over the windows because I can't see the screens as good. And so not only am I not outside playing, like I'm supposed to be, I'm blocking the sunshine. My grandma would get mad at us. We'd be over at grandma's house and we'd close the curtains so we could see the TV. And she's like, no, you have to let the sun in. And why are you watching TV? My dad's mom. So legacy, here I am, scrunched over the laptop trying to see. Yeah, it's just messed up. I was talking about this a while ago. It's like, the whole idea of how hippie do you want to be, and everything out here is harder. And I think it's worth acknowledging it sometimes. And it's some days, you get a bunch of bad days in a row where you're just getting stir crazy, and you just want to get off the ranch and never come back, and that's, people that have known me, like my parents, there isn't probably too many people here that have seen the motorcycle videos from when I did Alaska. But if you go back far enough, look for Green Dragon. I did the Alaska trip, not this one, but one basically like this one, the motorcycle, the one that's just off frame. It's most of my life. Every 2 or 3 years, I would just get fed up and drag all my stuff to the curb and run amok, and quite often just not come back. I'd just go somewhere else. That's how I got to Texas. I came to Texas on a motorcycle. It was at the end of the Alaska trip, and I knew I didn't want to. Had been living in Canada for a while, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to go back. I'll find a new way. And since I had been in the Navy, I've had whatchamacallit, alien status. I've lived in the U.S. most of my life, but I'm from Canada, so people get confused by that. But I served in the U.S. Navy for 9 years, so I still never got my citizenship, which I could have because I was in a war zone. But anyway, yeah, just it was so weird when it sunk in. I own this place. I live here. That is the biggest mind job. This is the first time I've ever had my own house that I paid for or built. When I cashed out the postal retirement, when I left the postal service, I managed to pay off the land that I kept, and then I sold off the rest of it. And I'm like, okay, I'm home. That's so hard to get used to. It's like, well, now if I want to just run amok, I'm like, wait, I have to go back because I have a house. I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do with that. I was joking about this a while ago with a few people, I guess, on Facebook or whatever. I used to be on Guam. I was stationed on Guam for 3 years. Went to Desert Storm from Guam. Right, worked on helicopters there. And just random life history, I guess, today. Maybe I'll make a point, but I don't have a script today. I'm just tired. If I stop talking, I'll probably fall asleep. But just randomly, like the week it got cold, it's like, okay, life out here is hard. All right. When I lived in the tropics, I never once thought of hypothermia. Okay. Here, it goes from being too cold to too hot in about a week, it seems like. You know, you'll have frost one day and then you'll be like rattlesnakes the next day, right? And I'm like, I've lived in a bunch of different places, but all of a sudden it just started sinking in. It's like either San Diego or Guam. And it's like, oh, San Diego's pretty expensive. I don't think I could go back there. I've lived there before, was stationed there, and then I stayed there for a couple of years after, I guess, till I was completely broke. But yeah, just randomly, it's like, I could go back to Guam. And I'm like, wait a minute, you know. So I actually looked, I'm like, and then I had this crazy idea. I'm like, oh man, I'll sell the ranch and I'll move to Guam. You know, that'll make it work. And I'm like, no, it's expensive on an island. That's not going to work. So that'll be my fallback plan. I was like, you know, if suddenly everybody goes out and buys 10 copies of my book, maybe I could afford to move to Guam. But I actually looked it up. It's a $2,000 flight just to get there, you know, and I wouldn't take, and it's like, this is how far I was, you know, that day I was really pissed off. I'm like, that's it. I'm going to the tropics, you know, and I realized it's like, okay, I would take like a duffel bag and 2 laptops and, you know, the camera so you guys can come along. But I'm like, I'm looking around and I'm like, there is not anything that I have, honestly. And it's like, I've got a lot of stuff. This was so weird when I realized it. There is nothing I own anymore that is honestly worth the cost of shipping. Right? I mean, like, I used to work in computers and stuff, so I was always picking up, you know, I got in the habit of picking up old computers because I could make them work and I'd get another year out of them. You know, sometimes I get a good computer, but most of my stuff is old. So I've got a pile of laptops. I mean, like literally a pile. Yeah, but none of them are, when I went truck driving school, I bought a Chromebook. So that's the newest one. So that's over a year old now, right? But that was the cheapest thing you could buy. It was like $100 or something like that. But I've got, I don't even know how many, 2 Dells, 3 Dells, 3 Tough Books. I bought those for Mars Clipper. I was going to use them for set props. So 3 Dells, 3 Tough Books. Tough Books used to be $5,000. You can pick them up for $50 on eBay now. Indestructible, waterproof laptops. Pretty cool. Perfect on your spaceship. I got an EEE PC, if you remember those, little tiny one. I used to have that mounted on the dash in my Porsche when I had a Porsche. Yeah, sold the Porsche to buy the motorcycle. Went to Alaska. How about that? Doesn't always make sense, some of the adventures I go on. Yeah, I'll walk through the bus sometimes, or I had to build an 8-foot by 12-foot storage room in the house to account for all of the crap I've got. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, there is nothing in here. Like if the house burned down, I would replace almost none of it, right? Or if I moved to Guam or whatever, you know. And, you know, for anybody that's worried, don't worry. It's like, until I have a lot of money, I'm not going anywhere. So odds are it's not going to happen anytime soon. You know, I can't even get an apartment for less than $1,000 from what I've seen over there. And that was the other thing. It's just like, okay, I came out here. Why did, you know, this is like, why did I come out here? That would be a good starting point, maybe. Everybody's got their own reason for whatever they're doing. You know, if you're going to move off grid or whatever, you know. Mostly, I just wanted to get away from people. I grew up on a farm, so I like the idea of having a lot of room. All right. So if I decide I want to make noise, I'll make noise. You know, neighbors just randomly start shooting at stuff once in a while. I assume they're probably shooting at targets or each other's dogs or snakes. Okay, there's legitimate reasons to shoot things out here. It's like the first couple of times I'm like, oh man, people are shooting. I'm like, well, yeah, it's a perfect place to be shooting as long as they aren't shooting at me. I guess that's okay. It just seems kind of weird because you spend time in town and nobody shoots in town, but I grew up with guns and I was in the military, so it just seems kind of weird, But, if I decide I want to run the generator and run my welder and my grinders and build something, great. There's no quiet hours, If you need your generator at 2 o'clock in the morning, you start it up. No big deal. I generally don't. I don't like the noise, but if you need it, you need it, right? So, yeah. So all of a sudden, it just kind of like, wow. If I moved, and it was like one of those days where it's like, okay, it's too cold to take a shower, or the water isn't working, or I don't have enough power to have a hot shower. And all of a sudden, it just like bing, 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 this whole list appeared in my head. It's like, if I lived in an apartment, I could turn on the tap and the water would work. I could turn on the switch and the lights would work. I could probably have high-speed internet. That was, that might be better than running water, honestly. And it was just the weirdest thing where I honestly, when I came out here, I thought, man, I'm going to live out here the rest of my life. I'll be that old guy, old guy, not like, this, but really old. There's a couple old guys I see walking to town every now and then. I was like, I just want to go get them a bicycle. Maybe that'll be my Johnny Appleseed idea. I'll go around and give people bicycles with electrics when I get that figured out. But I just think, I figured I'd be out here forever, and all of a sudden I'm like, man, I could have high-speed internet and running water in the tropics, right? And then the next day I'd, turn on the internet, and I'm like, oh, wait, that's expensive. That's right. The reason I lived on Guam before is the military sent me there. I had no idea how expensive it was. It's like a 6-hour flight. When we went, it was 6 hours from San Francisco to Hawaii, and then 12 hours from Hawaii to Guam because you're going against the jet stream. Coming back, it was 6 and 6 and 6 and 12 going, right? Yeah, that's a long, long time to be on an airplane. Yeah, it was like, we just went down to the office and they gave us a plane ticket. You're going to Guam. Okay, thank you. Where's Guam? I've never heard of it before. I'm going to Guam, So off we go. Turned out okay. I liked it, Or I spent, a winter in Belize a couple of years back. That book, Little Red Welder, if you see that, that's where that came from. That was actually, the end of the Alaska trip. I ended up at my dad's house for a while. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. It was getting close to winter. I was up in Washington State. It was going to get cold pretty soon. I'm on the motorcycle. Didn't really have any good plans and was starting to burn through a lot of money. Shocking. And he was talking about, hey, let's go down to Belize. I'm like, that sounds warm. Let's go do that, So he and I went down there together. We worked on this project. He flew home. I stayed down there for the whole winter. And then I took a series of buses from Belize all the way back to San Diego, jumped on Amtrak, got home, jumped on the motorcycle, ended up in Texas. There you go. And here we are. But yeah, my whole life, it's been 2 or 3 years at the most, and then I would just go start over somewhere else. And that is just killing me right now. It's like, in addition to travel restrictions and, everything else, which, it's probably going to change, but just like, I'm actually have been thinking about it. I'm like, I'm going to go clear a spot about 1,000 feet that way and go camping on my property just to get out of the house for a week. It might happen. I should hurry up before the snakes wake up because that would be uncomfortable. But yeah, I've camped out here before I moved out here, so it would just be hilarious. Border Patrol would be knocking on my tent. What are you doing? "Oh, I'm just camping. I live here," just to be funny. Anyway, yeah. It's hard to make plans anymore. You don't know what's coming, I'm just glad that things, basically have worked out. I mean, I haven't worked for over a year. I've had, I sold the truck, then I got a tax return, and then we got the first stimulus check almost at the same time. And then I sold off some land, got a little bit of money from that. I wasn't really doing it for money. I was just doing it because, I didn't want to make payments anymore, So every time something would come up, it'd be like something else would work out. And I would have, Patreons have really stepped up, much appreciated. I didn't go off and quit my job thinking Patreons were going to, feed me the rest of my life. That wasn't what I planned on doing, but hopefully you guys are, getting something out of what I'm doing out here. And, it's like, I don't want it to be like a charity case, but, if I can create something useful and, I know over the years there's been people that I've given a couple dollars a month to. So, and it's like, I know my dollar doesn't really make any difference in their world, but I guess I look at it as I appreciate them, I don't have cable. I guess that's the way I look at it is instead of me paying $100 a month for cable that goes to some idiot that doesn't really, yeah, sure, it's entertaining, but they don't need my money, But if I can give a few dollars a month to a couple people on Patreon, that helps them keep going. And it's a trade. It's like I'm getting something from them, either entertaining or, they do some really cool stuff or, the people on the sailboat. Great. It's just fun to see other people doing things, that you always wanted to do. That's worth $1. That's the way I look at it, So, I forget how I got there, but sometimes the best stuff comes out that way. Just random stuff, I guess, today. Yeah. God, it's just beautiful out here, though. This was going to be the first really warm day, and it definitely has worked out. I could have wore shorts today, honestly. No, talk too much again. How much is left? Okay, sorry. Anyway, last thing. This came up a few times. I gotta say that it's like planting a tree. I think that's how it started. The old saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, so that you would have a tree now. But the second best time is now, because I am so glad, I've never, it's like I've never regretted quitting some of the jobs that I've quit. Obviously, yeah, that was a lot of money. I've never made $60,000 before, and I was doing okay. Bought a truck, I had enough money to start paying for the land. Didn't pay off the land as soon as I should have, because you always have something else you end up buying. But, yeah, I don't know. I guess what I'm thinking is I am so glad I came out here when I did, right? Because I moved out here, or I bought the property a couple of years before I moved out here, okay? And then I would come out like on a holiday, take a long weekend or take a week off and camp on the property and just kind of hang out, see if you liked it. But, then I brought the school bus out here and started getting things set up, and then a couple of years later I had enough money after I cashed out my retirement to build the house. But it's like I'm 53, I'll be 54 this year, right? That's not old. But man, am I ever glad I did it now Because I was thinking I was going to wait until I retired. Oh man, 10 years later, I don't think I would have wanted to build the house. It was about all I could do to do it. I mean, it's like I'm not, a big, strong guy or anything like that. It was, I probably could have done it, but I guess, it's like if you're thinking about something, and you never know, it's like the world could change like it has, Do something, if you got something that you're thinking, I've heard people, oh, I'm gonna go write a book when I retire. Why wait? I mean, it took me 10 years to write these books. Desert Storm Diaries, I started writing the diary in Desert Storm, and it was 2009 when I finally published it. And I worked on it off and on, all the way from 91 to 2009, But it's like every time I'd see it, I'm like, oh, I get excited, and I'd write a chapter, or I'd go back and tweak it a little bit, and then I'd forget about it, and a couple of years later, I'd find it again, and like, oh, I should do something with this, So finally, a friend of mine helped me publish it. Great. These books, about 10 or 11 years, right? So I don't know if it's, it's not a great work of art that I put 10 years of work into, but yeah, there's always something you think you'd like to do. Just do it. Especially do it when you're young enough to enjoy it. And then you can say you did it. The Alaska trip on the motorcycle. Oh man, am I glad I did that when I did. That was 10 years ago, I think. Something like that. That would have been much harder now. So I guess that's about all. I was just kind of wanted to check in, show you a little bit of what I'm working on out here. It hasn't seemed like I've had a big project, so I haven't felt like making a video, but it's all the little stuff that adds up. So just want to let you know I'm still out here. Thanks for all your support. I do appreciate you. And if you got an idea, go do it. Don't wait for it, because you never know. Cool. I'm going to go take a shower. I'm stinky. All right, bye for now. Cool. Yeah, this should be all of the last books I did. Oh, that looks cool. Surface of Mars. Very cool. It is this, I don't know, it's goofy, right? I mean, kind of like laughing at your own joke or something like that, but that stupid book has been rattling around in my head for so long. So to finally see it in physical form, that's just kind of cool. Anyway, so if I can do any kind of display on this or not, I'll just put a link. And one of the things that I haven't done yet on the book covers, that's the big one, the last one. I need to post a picture of all the covers on the website, so I'll try to remember to do that. Oh, that looked cool. I was doing this just before Perseverance landed on Mars, and I was giggling when I started seeing the pictures that they posted, because they had the orange and white parachutes, and this is something landing on Mars. So I was pretty excited about that when I saw it. All right. Yeah, there's 9 books in the set. That was actually season 1, and then there was 3 books of the prequel. This is the way it kind of happened, so yeah. Anyway, there'd be a link in the description for that, or just go to marsclipper.com. All right.